Hello and welcome to my podcast, Conversations with Cornelius, where I, Cornelius Patrick O'Sullivan, discuss, chat and hypothesize on all things from fatherhood, marriage, comedy and everything else in between. From time to time, there will be special guests, but mostly it's going to be me and some regular contributors, including my main squeeze, Noelle Patricia O'Sullivan, aka the wife. So sit back, relax and enjoy Conversations with Cornelius! Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Cornelius. My name is Cornelius, and this week I am sitting in for Cornelius, who last week sat in for Cornelius. The original Cornelius is still missing, so and last week's Cornelius never showed up today, so they just gave me a quick call. They said, come here, is your name definitely Cornelius? I said it is. They said, can you send us on a copy of your driver's license and a utility bill just to prove that? And I was like, who's this? And they were like, you don't need to know. And I was like, well, I kind of do need to know. I mean, you're just ringing me up here asking me, am I Cornelius? And then they said, do you know the podcast Conversations with Cornelius? And I was like, of course I do. I listen to it religiously. It's like in my top 10 podcasts. And then I said, I'm only messing. I actually only listen to one podcast, and it is Conversations with Cornelius. What's this got to do with anything? And then they said, well, look, long story short, a couple of weeks ago, Cornelius went missing and we had to replace him then with another Cornelius. And now that guy's gone missing, and would you mind filling in? Your name is Cornelius. I can, if you can verify that, obviously. And it's quite a lucrative salary. And I was like, right, okay, how much? What are we talking about? And they said, well, financially it's not great, but just think about the exposure you're going to get. And that got me. I was like, I could do with a bit of exposure. So I took the exposure, and here I am on the podcast. As I said, my name is Cornelius. I'm in the John Hume War Room. I'm sipping some sparkling water. I was sick yesterday, Sunday. I went for something to eat. And long story short, within about maybe 35 minutes, I was having explosive diarrhea and projectile vomitus. Now, nobody else got sick, so I'm thinking it's some sort of a bug, I think I'm okay now. I'm a little bit better anyway. But explosive diarrhea is not... Well, it's... do you know what I mean? It's grand when you have a phone. The toilet, years ago, the toilet wasn't half the experience that it is nowadays. Even if you take away we're all educated, we can all read and write. Well, I'm presuming most people here who are listening to this can read and write. And if you can't read and write, you could learn to read and write. It's not a taboo subject like it was. Let's go back before the Brits were here. Let's go back 1,000 years ago. Do you know what I mean? People going to the jacks 1,000 years ago, they weren't that educated. They're having to... Also, the jackses weren't as nice. They were outside, probably in a bush, hunched down. So, I mean, not very classy. On your haunches, squelching out whatever your body has digested from the meager existence. Depending again, then, maybe you're working and maybe you're in a tribe that's that's doing well for itself. But at the same time, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? There's no salary. You're getting paid in a bit of deer. How'd you get on last week? Yeah, I had the breast of a deer and some blackberries. My shits are all over the place. But yeah, I'm in the John Hume War Room, and it is 4:15 on Monday afternoon. I didn't do this podcast yesterday. I usually do it on Sundays because I was ill. My body and my belly were ill, and so now I'm doing it. Okay, all right. So leave me alone. All right, I'm still here. I'm still doing it. Someone was at a gig that I was doing at the weekend. Actually, shout out to Harry Hussey, right? He is a Patreon of this podcast. A very active patron. Nearly every week he'll send a message after an episode goes up and whether he relates to it or whether he doesn't relate to it or give his own opinion on it. And he has become a regular at the Coco Comedy Club in Cork as well, my comedy club in Cork. And he came up to me this weekend and he wanted to know why the John Hume War Room is called the John Hume War Room, which is a very, very, very interesting thing, Harry. And I'm not sure anyone actually knows why, but John Hume, for those of you who do not know, was a great political leader for the Unionists. He was predominantly a Unionist in Northern Ireland 40 years ago, and he was heavily involved in the Good Friday Agreement 25 years ago. And he was a man of peace, a man of integrity, a gentleman. And like when he passed away, so many people spoke lovingly of him from both sides of the divide. And when you're talking about politics, you're talking about the north of Ireland, you're talking about Catholics and Protestants, you're talking about deep-seated hatred. And he transcended that. He was a bridge from that. But anyway, long story short, he passed away there not that long ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And it coincidentally happened to be a day that I was in this room here that is now christened the John Hume War Room with a couple of friends, and we were playing a board game called Risk. And we were taking it all so very seriously all together. Dominic and Tig, who've been on this podcast, and Claire, who's been on this podcast, and Sully, who's been on this podcast, and actually my best friend in the whole wide world who's never been on this podcast, Danny, as well. And I don't think he'll ever be on this podcast because he's not a podcasting type of person. But anyway, the crack was Risk is a world dominating game. You basically try to take over the world. It's all about strategy and deviousness and cleverness and negotiations, and it's really simple to play, but like really intricate nonetheless. I mean, you have to be planning and making accords and it's a great game really. And anyway, the crack was that Dominic christened this place the John Hume War Room because we were plotting war, and John Hume had passed away on the day. And it's clearly an ironic name because John Hume would never be seen dead in a war room plotting the downfall of other countries and people. He'd be on the other side of it trying to make peace, John Hume. That's my northern accent. Lovely. So Harry, I explained that to you at the Cocoa Club the last day after a gig that we did there on Saturday night, and it was in my head, and I was like, do you know what, I'm going to tell the Padcast Nation the reason why this place is called the John Hume War Room. And it has always been it has stuck. It has always been known as that then from here on in. But anyway, as I said, it is November. I think it's the 11th, or is it the 14th? I'm not sure. Will I check? I suppose I'll fucking check, will I? Let's have a quick check there, lads. Classic. How did the podcast go? Well, he spent large chunks of it looking for the actual date of the day that he was doing that podcast. Wow, are you serious? That sounds riveting. Well, you'd think it would be, but I was wrong anyway, lads. It's the 14th. It's the 14th, and it is windy outside. Windy. The wind is like a crescendo. Now the trees are almost bare. There are still a few holding on to the last few leaves, and it is grey and it is windy and the rain is beckoning. And I can tell you this, it is mild. It is mild outside. It is temperate. You could literally walk out. You could go around the place in a t-shirt if there wasn't the constant threat of a fucking shower of rain. We're talking Ireland, lads. We might be in the middle of a global melting, a global crisis, a global fucking catastrophe, worldwide catastrophe, but like, you're still going to get rain in Ireland. It's inevitable under any circumstances, but yeah, it's warm rain, I suppose. Better than a kick in the bollocks. I want to say thank you to everyone who's tagged me last week on their stories, who liked the podcast last week and took time to search it out and put it up on their story and give me a shout out. I really appreciate that. It was absolutely fantastic. It's great to get just out into new ears, and I want to say thank you for that. I also want to say thank you to the fantastic 14 Patreons I have. You guys are absolutely amazing. You're putting gas in the tank of my life, and I thank you most humbly. Anyway, I want to start this week's podcast with a poem by Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is a poet who is no longer with us. She's dead. She did know Emily Dickinson. She did know a long time it was. Do you know she was mad for the old scribbles? She did a bit of scribbling. This is back when women, they were just not encouraged to read, not to mention write, and then to put the two of them together in an artistic vein. Nah. Stop that now. Anyway, this is called Hope. And it's by Emily Dickinson. And you could very easily laugh at her surname if you were immature. Dick in son. Right, okay. Hope. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest lands and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. She was good at the old poems, in fairness to her. God bless her. God bless her, and I'll belong to her. Anyway, I am acutely aware that this podcast is going to be landing into people's ears on a Tuesday morning as opposed to a Monday morning. So I don't know what to... what I'm going to do is just talk what was interesting to me about last week. And last week, I did a gig in Loughrea. Loughrea is in a place called Galiev. And if you're driving up the new road in Galway is fucking spectacular. From Limerick to Galway, it's like you're in space, particularly at night time. It's just like you're a fucking spaceship zipping through the fucking planet. There's no traffic. The few times I've been to Galway this time, coming back, I suppose I am coming back late as well. I'm coming back on the road around midnight, 1 o'clock sometimes. But you're just zipping along this epic, beautiful new road that's just forged into this breathtaking scenery. And even though it's dark at night time, there's so many castles that are silhouetted. It's a beautiful drive. But I was in Loughrea, and I was doing my own solo show that I will be touring with next year. It's called A Bird in the Hand, but I'm in two minds whether to change the title of the show. I might be changing the title of the show. But the Mind guy came up. He was doing my support. He was the support act, and we had a great conversation on the way up. We were talking about death and the afterlife and life, and whether we are living in a reality or whether this is actually a video game that we're and we're characters being played by someone else. So like mad conversations. He was telling me about the afterlife. He said he read something recently where they say, when you're dying and you see the light, and they say, come into the light. If you go into the light, apparently this is a hypothesis that he had, well, not that he had, but from something that he had read, that if you end up going into the light, you instantly reincarnate back onto the planet. So stay away from the light. That's what he was saying anyway. That's what he was saying. I don't know whether to believe him. Do you know whether to believe him or not? But it's an interesting hypothesis nonetheless. Anyway, we drove up. We got to Loughrea. We got there nice and early. We were in a venue there called McCabe's, run by a very decent chap called Kamim, who had booked me on Facebook. I had done a gig there a couple of years ago as well, and it was great to come back and to do my own show there. The people in Galway are fucking sound. They're sound out. Actually, genuinely sound people. And when we got to the gig, there was humble enough number at it now, I'll be honest, maybe 25, 30 people, and all varying in ages. A couple of young lads there, I think, who were there because of my Facebook videos, and then just a general crowd that were coming to watch some comedy. But then there was 2 Americans then as well, and the minute we got to the venue, the Americans inflicted themselves upon us. Hey, how you doing? I'm a photographer. Yeah, I love comedy, man. Chappelle, Chappelle? And hi, how you doing? And not only did they hang around with us, and when I say hang around now, in a non-welcome way, like we're like, myself and Pete were trying to get into our head before the show. They hung out with us. They bought us drinks, and then they came over and they were chatting away, and then at half time they were chatting away, and then after the show they were chatting away. And I don't want to sound like I'm unappreciative of people chatting to me, but these guys didn't want to talk about anything, only that their own experience, their own midlife crisis. They're coming to here, they're going to buy a house, they're looking at different venues. I'm a photographer. I can't even remember what she was doing. In fact, it was nearly all the guy that was doing the talking. He was like your stereotypical kind of, yo, America, fuck yeah. He had long hair and a bandana, Look, nothing wrong with having long hair, or even having a bandana. But anyone that I've ever met with the both of them going on at the same time was a cunt. The gig itself was actually brilliant. I really enjoyed it. It was great to get to put put a bit of legs on it outside of the county, and it's great to stand on your own as well. I've been doing a lot of that material, supporting the great Chris Kent, and Laura Manny and Julie J and stuff like that. So it's great to get out there and be at the head or be at the back end of a show, if you know what I'm saying. They gave us pizza afterwards. Beautiful pizza, but alas, they put meat on fucking both pizzas, so I couldn't eat any of that pizza. So we had to stop and get me a pizza. And I got a margarita in a Italian chipper in Loughrea called Margaritas. And it was delicious. So if you're ever in Loughrea and you're looking for a pint, go to McCabe's, and then afterwards get a pizza in Margaritas. So Friday I was doing a show in the Cocoa Club, and the interesting thing about the Cocoa Club, our capacity has doubled. We used to have seating for 35, but I've been in talks with the owner over the last couple of months, and numbers to the club are just through the roof. The club is going from strength to strength, and he agreed to get me some more tables and chairs for the venue, and we got them on Friday, and so it was double capacity. The only thing was the fucking weather was horrendous on Friday. I mean, it was stormy conditions. So even though we had a good crowd for the show, maybe 25, 30, they were all from online ticket sales. There was nothing hustled in from the street because the weather was just horrendous. And but still a great show. Paul Marsh, who does some one-liners, he's a one-liner comedian. He came down and he was doing his solo show, and he gave me a book afterwards, right? I'm just going to read out some of his. This is a book that he wrote with some of his one-liners, and he sells it at merch at the end of his gigs and stuff like that. And it's I was flicking through it. A monk died at our local monastery, and out of respect they had a minute's talking. Our maths teacher's overweight because of all the takeaways. You see these, and he rattled. If you listen to 15 or 20 of these in a row, you get into a kind of a reverberating belly laugh that just keeps going and going, because they're just one-liners. Let's have another one. My friend gave me a tip to buy Bulmer's stock, but I got done for insider trading. Cider. Bulmer's is cider for you Americans who are like, I don't get it. Okay, I'm writing a song about digging for coal. It's in A minor. I've decided I love sandwiches so much, I'm going to start a club. Brilliant. Anyone can join. Oh yeah, so this is a great section here now. So I've decided I love sandwiches so much, I'm going to start a club. That's the first joke. Brilliant. Anyone can join in. Anyone can join after filling in the forms. And once it's full, people can wait for the next batch. It'll be a great way to meet people. We'll have a roll call. Let us put our heads together and come up with a good name for it. Ciabatta be a good one. And that's what the show was. It was all these dad, and like the book is called Dad Jokes, so they're all dad jokes, they're all one-liners. He had a musician comedian with him as well called Larkin, and there was music, and it was actually really good, a really great show. And check out Paul Marsh as well online. Paul Marsh Comedy, a funny guy. I was just disappointed because we had the double capacity, and normally we'd fucking hustle the shit out of that and get it full. I'm just looking here now, my battery's about to go in the fucking podcast. I never changed the batteries. Okay, I'm going to push on because I want to talk about Saturday. Saturday was a sold out show in the Cocoa Club, lads. Fucking hell, we nearly had 70 people in the new capacity, and it was jointed. You couldn't swing a cat in there. The sweat was there was sweat beads on the sweat beads. Do you know what I mean? It was just beautiful, but not in a kind of a sweat, you know. I'm just saying people were beside each other. There was a laugh that just resonated and reverberated all around the room. The gig was amazing. All the comedians smashed it. And these new chairs that we got, right, they're like national school chairs that people my vintage would have sat on going to school. And there's a real vibe when you come in and you have to sit back on these chairs, like very like the chairs that you did when you were 12, 10, 8, 7 going to national school. And there was a few good jokes being at the expense of the chairs. Sahido opened the show, and he was absolutely class. Sahido's a comedian, also listens to this podcast. Shout out to Sahid. And he opened the show with some fucking brilliant material about being from the north side of Cork City. And Sahido is he's a brilliant comedian, and he came to this country from Nigeria when he was 12, and he just talks about the contrast of from where he's from to where he is now, and how he feels all those years later. Fascinating set and absolutely hilarious. Then we had the only funny German, Dan, who's been on this podcast, and he absolutely smashed it with his material as well. And then closing out the first half, Aaron McCarthy, and Aaron's playing the guitar and doing some crowd work and just absolutely smashed it. Chris McShane then was on the second half, and it just took the whole night to a different level altogether. It was amazing, and having all the people inside in the room, having, instead of having 35, 40, we had close to 70 people squashed into the room, all drinking, all laughing, all feeling the vibe, and candles lit, and it was just magic. If you could bottle that, I think actually it's why I got sick on Sunday, because it just took so much out of me the night, because I was hosting the whole night, and I gave it my all as well. I just really tried to connect with the audience and talk with them and be funny with them. And I came home and I was wired when I got home. Fuck me, I was so wired. I got home about 12:30, and I couldn't go to bed. I literally couldn't go to bed. So I came in here into the John Hume War Room, turned on the computer, and I did some work. I had worked away for about an hour, and then I was still wired. So then I turned on FIFA and I played FIFA. I got through about 3 games of FIFA before I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. And then I went to bed, and it was close to 3 o'clock. And then I was up early with the fucking kids. Actually, I wasn't up early with the kids, but I was still up early enough. And it just took it out of me. And Noelle was working from home, and because she was working from home, we decided we go for a spot of lunch. And and that's when I got the shits and I got the vomits, and I was like, bleh. I couldn't make it to improv panto rehearsals, and just because kind of run down and just chilled out yesterday. And today I feel much better. I do feel much better. And but I did have a kind of a weird and interesting morning, right? And it's interesting how your energy can change, and how talking about vibrations there in the Cocoa Club, talking about vibes. Some people, some people just say vibes, and they just, I suppose they acknowledge that, there's good vibes and there's bad vibes, and they never look too deeply into things, But like, I am acutely aware of vibrations and how someone can come into a room and change the mood in the room just by the walk, the stance, the look, before they say anything, But anyway, I got up this morning and I did the school run with the boys, and Noel's car had a puncture, so we had to pump that tyre up, and I said I'd go into town and get the puncture repaired. She's on night shift, so she was working from home yesterday and she's working night shift tonight. So I said I'd go in and get that done, you go back to bed. So she went back to bed, I went into town, and I was feeling a bit better, so I brought my gear and I said, do you know what, I'll go for a sauna while I'm getting the tyres sorted. And I had the injections. I never said that actually about my injections in my knee as well. I got my injections in my knee last week, and my knee seems to be very, very good. Touch wood. But anyway, I dropped the car. I said, look, can you get the tyre fixed on that, please? And they said, yeah, no problem. I said, I'll be back in a half an hour. I'm just going to go over town there for a swim. And I went over to town, walked over, went for my sauna, had my cold shower, got out, was really vibing, like as I was walking across to collect the car. I was trying to notice the trees, I was trying to notice people, I was trying to soak in and be present, because sometimes you just go through the motions and you're not present. I've often hopped into my car and driven to Cork, and then I landed in Cork and I've been totally unaware of all the micro decisions I've made on that journey, all the gear shifts I've up and down, how many times I've touched the brake, how many corners I've gone around, totally oblivious of what's going on. But I think being present slows time down. And lads, this battery could go now at any stage, so I need to get to the end of this story. So I walk back anyway, back to the garage, and I'm feeling great. And then I get back and I turn on my phone and I notice there's a missed call from the garage, and I'm like, oh, that's never good. So I get there and she says, look, there's no point in repairing the puncture, the fucking tyre is bollocks, and also the other front tyre is bollocks, and the two back tyres have about 3, maybe 4 weeks left in them. You need 4 tyres. And I was like, right, okay, fuck, yeah, okay, how much? And I said, look, if you're putting 4 tyres in it, you'll have to track and balance it as well. So in fairness, I get my tyres there the whole time, O'Sullivan Tyres in Mallow, and they're sound, and they gave me a great deal, €425 to get 4 new tyres and to get it tracked on. And I was like, do I even have that in my account? That's what I'm thinking. Do I have that in my account? Because like, money's too tight to mention, I can't get an unemployment extension, fucking soaring costs, electricity, you know yourself, fuel, the whole shit and sugar-boodle. I don't know if I even have that. So I checked my online banking and I do have it by the hair of my chinny chin. So I'm like, yeah, shoot the breeze with that. I actually have just over 500 in my current account, so I'm like, okay, phew, I can get that. And we need the tyres, may as well get the tyres. So then the lady says to me, look, it's going to be an hour. So I said, look, I'll come back, and I decide to go for a cup of tea. And I walk over to the Arches in Mallow for a cup of tea. And maybe a bowl of soup. So I get in anyway, and I've changed my mind. I'm not getting tea. I'm getting a bowl of soup and a toasted sandwich. I'm being kind to myself. So I order a toasted special without the ham, and the soup is potato and leek, and I go up and I sit down and I'm scrolling on my phone, and I'm feeling good, actually. I'm feeling good that I had the money in my account to pay for these tyres when it wasn't something that was, that I was anticipating. I've often been in the past struggling to make ends meet, particularly as a comedian, like really struggling, taking shit paid gigs just to pay a lecky bill, so I was and then I was like, here I am, I'm trying to be grateful. I'm just out of a sauna. I feel I was sick yesterday, and now I feel I'm on the mend again today, and I'm trying to take the positives out of it. So anyway, I'm eating away my soup comes, my sandwich comes, I'm eating away. And then the next thing, as I'm eating, a voice comes and says, "Oh, Cornelius, how are you? How's it going?" And it is a colleague of mine who works in the same kind of industry as I am in, but not a comedian. And I've done a lot of work with this person, and we get chatting, and very quickly I mention, I said, "I haven't seen you in ages, I haven't seen you online." And the person says, "Yeah, I've come offline, and look, there's a few things going on there, and I can't deal with online at the moment, and just like a lot of personal stuff." And I could tell straight away that something serious was going on, and obviously you can't pry, you can't go, "Come here, what's the story? Why are you offline? What are the troubles in your life? I'm curious. I want it for my own curiosity. Tell me." You can't do that. Plus, also, I didn't really feel like that either. I didn't want to be like, "Oh, tell me," So we're having this conversation, but it is like, because this person is online the whole time. Okay, I'm not going to give away the gender, the name, or anything like that. But this person is online the whole time and would be very prolific and would have a large following. And then, just out of the blue, they told me why they were offline, and it was a harrowing story. And I'm not going to even disclose what it was, but they just blurted it out. And then it came out, and it came out, and it came out, and it came out, and it came out. Now I'm halfway through my soup, and I can't take a spoonful of soup here. I'm hungry. I've done a lot of walking. I'm over and back. I've gone for my sauna. I've 3 of the sandwiches left. These are toasted sandwiches. They're going cold, but this is like, I can't. Like, what am I'm going to have to forsake it. The soup. I'm going to have to forsake the soup and the sandwiches, because this is a harrowing story, and this person is welling up in front of me, and I'm feeling it as well. I'm feeling the vibration here change from like a high frequency to a medium frequency, and even down even lower into a kind of this is harrowing, this is sad, this is desperate. And yeah, it just like that. And then the person left and went and sat down with a few of their friends, and I was left with my cold soup and my 3 of my 4 triangles of toasted cheese sandwiches, toasted specials. Take the ham out, I said. So there was tomato and onion and cheese in them. Not that you need to know that. And I ate the sandwiches because I'm starving, but I left the soup. And then I said goodbye to that person. I went over and I said goodbye to that person. I went back into reality again. And I was different. I was totally different. My whole mood had changed from the encounter. And I felt weird. It affected me. It affected everything about my day. Had paled into insignificance at the trauma that this person had told me that she'd gone through. And I think I just gave away the fucking gender there now. But anyway, it's still vague as fuck, isn't it? But yeah, it's hard out there, guys. It's hard out there. We'd had a tough couple of years, and now with the cost of living and with the just everything is just a little bit more difficult. So it's more important than ever to try and keep the vibe high. Try and keep the mood up. Drink from a glass that's half full. Fake it till you make it. Pretend. Do your affirmations. Visualize good things. And keep the vibe high, because it can happen very quickly that the vibe goes down. And you know what? I brought it home with me. And I was chatting with Noelle. She was like, Are you alright? And I had to share it with her. I had to share what happened. And she was like, wow, you know. Obviously you can share situations like that with the love of your life. But yeah, it's a weird world out there, guys. I love you, and thank you again for tuning in. We made it. I thought this was going to go at any stage. Staying by the wall, and I hope to God that I'll have a podcast out next Monday instead of Tuesday. Rate, review, subscribe, follow me, tell all your friends, tag me on Instagram, blah 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 blah. Staying by the wall, staying by the wall, staying by the wall.